Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast, episode number 13. We're almost caught up to the Mariners winning streak. Hopefully that continues to go a lot longer and we fall quite a bit behind. But we are so glad to have you with us. All baseball this week in honor of All-Star Week for the MLB. So we are going to be taking talking about the All-Star festivities to begin. And of course, the best all-star festivity or all-star event in any sport is the Home Run Derby, which takes place tonight. We're recording this on Monday, so a lot of excitement, especially as Mariners fans, get to see Julio in, the first Mariners since Robinson Cano. I've seen a lot of people just forget about the Cano performance, maybe because it was pretty unforgettable in that forgettable in that home run derby where he just got destroyed by Giancarlo Stanton. But there's a lot of other intriguing names in this field. So we decided we were going to fill out our brackets and kind of whoever has the better bracket gets to have a decree. So we're going to go ahead and break down every single matchup, starting with the 1 versus 8 seed Kyle Schwarber against Albert Pujols. And I think a lot of people have a feeling that this one is going to be going in favor of Kyle Schwarber. I have Schwarber winning this round pretty easily. I just don't know if Pujols has much left in the tank to go on and put on a show like you have to in the home run derby.
Yeah, I was talking to you last week about those veteran, the legacy selections, and it's a cool idea. I'm not for it in practice. I feel like, especially because Schwarber, I could see going a lot further. It isn't going to be much of a fight, I don't think.
I do think it's cool. I think Pujols is going to get a pretty good ovation going back to Dodger Stadium. I mean, he did spend a little bit of time there last season, so going to be nice for him to get acknowledged on what's kind of his farewell tour, but I think it's going to be a short-lived night for him. Again, Schwarber's just having a fantastic year.
And you got to think, so many of these guys are Dominican. It's going to be so cool to see. He was one of those trailblazers. I mean, Dominicans have always been in baseball, but one of the best home run hitters in the history of the sport. Just, he could be some of these guys' grandpas, it seems like. So it'll be really cool to see that tie into it as well.
He's still got pop. He still hits bombs, not as often, but they still go pretty far. So it's going to be fun to see him kind of have his farewell. Next, we head to the 4-5 matchup. Juan Soto, the 4-5. Juan Soto against Jose Ramirez. This one's interesting. Jose Ramirez, we always talk about the most underrated hitter in all of baseball. Switch hitter. Switch hitters never won the home run derby. I expect for him to hit lefty. That seems to be switch hitters' preferred side. They get more power from the left-handed side. I have him beating Juan Soto in the first round. We're going to talk a lot about Juan Soto on this episode, but I think Jose Ramirez, I think this is a chance for him to kind of break out. Let the world see how good of a hitter he is, how strong he is. Home runs aren't always his his go-to. It's a lot of line drives, but in Dodger Stadium, those can carry quite a bit. So I think Jose Ramirez is going to have a good showing. I think he knocks out Juan Soto round 1.
Yeah, Dodger Stadium's kind of unique in the fact that lefties, righties, really no benefit there. Very symmetrical outfield, and so I don't think that that's as helpful. But no, I see Soto beating him, no question. Soto is just a fantastic hitter. Like I said, we're going to be talking a lot about him. Kind of reminds me of Julio in a couple years, maybe. And I see him going far. I think that all of these contract talks are fueling him, and he's just going to utilize that and say, no, I'm here to play ball.
Remember last year he was talking about, I'm using this home run derby to fix my swing. I'm hitting everything on the ground. I need to get more loft. So he definitely takes it pretty seriously. Not as serious as the guy in the next matchup, the 2-7, the back-to-back defending champ, Pete Alonso, looking for the three-peat, looking to become the second player to ever win 3 straight, the other being Ken Griffey Jr. He's going to go up against Ronald Acuna Jr. Ronald Acuna Jr., I don't even think he's all the way back from returning from that ACL injury. I don't think he's found his groove quite yet. And to throw him in there against Pete Alonso round one, I think Pete wins this one pretty comfortably. He just knows how to hit home runs. He knows how to perform in this event.
Yeah. And it amazes me how, we were watching last year. My wife was actually talking. Oh yeah, I remember him from last year. Just that calm, cool, like meditating in the back and just coming to compete and do nothing but hit home runs. If anyone's gonna match Griffey's three-peat, it's going to be him. I have him beating Acuna, just not even close.
He might be one of the best home run derby participants ever. I mean, we see guys have great years, but to do it consistently, I mean, him, Griffey, and I also throw in Yoenis Cespedes when he won back-to-back. Those guys just know how to hit in that event. So he's going to be obviously probably the favorite. We move to the 3-6 matchup. Corey Seager taking on the Mariners' own rookie sensation, Julio Rodriguez. Julio looking to become the youngest winner ever of the event. Corey Seager, he gets to go home. No Dodgers in the field. Normally you see one guy from the home team or the team hosting the All-Star game get in there. Corey Seager, I guess, is the de facto guy in that one. I think Julio, his youth, he's going to come out guns blazing, and I think he's going to put on a show in round one. I think he knocks off Corey Seager. I think he puts a little bit too much energy into that first round, though, which could cause him trouble later on. But I think he knocks off Corey, keeps the Mariners winning streak alive.
I 100% agree. He's going to beat up on the Rangers even more, right? So we've been able to see Julio. I think that other people in the baseball world that 100% are starting to take notice, but with how small and how fast he is, I don't think that the rest of the world sees just how powerful his home run bombs can be. I know there's been highlights where, that one was launched pretty good, but this kid, when we say 5-tool player, power is a big factor in that. This isn't a contact hitter that gets lucky and a ball flies over the fence because it was the perfect launch angle. This guy can mash home runs, and he's gonna just trample over Kyle's brother.
Kyle's brother, I love that one. Maybe the second best Seager, at least for Corey, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move into the semifinals. We only had one disagreement, so we're going to start with that one. I've got Kyle Schwarber versus Ramirez in round number 2. You got Schwarber against Soto. Here comes an upset for me. I have Jose Ramirez getting the job done in this one. I think he beats Kyle Schwarber. I think, again, this is an opportunity for Ramirez on the biggest stage. Being in Cleveland where the team's been middle of the pack the last couple of years. No one's really talking about him. I think this is a good chance for him to kind of put his name out in the spotlight. I think he beats Schwarber. Schwarber knows how to hit in this competition. He made it to the finals a few years back, lost to Bryce Harper. I think this gets cut a little bit shorter for Schwarber. I got Ramirez going to the finals.
I also have Schwarber losing, but Ramirez is already out of it at this point. So Soto just going to be, like I said, destroying the ball, proven I'm here to play ball, and that's all he's wanting to do.
Now the matchup that might be the most exciting one, Pete Alonso, Julio Rodriguez. Again, Pete going for the 3-peat. This is where I think Julio kind of going all out round 1. He might be a little bit gassed come round 2, might be a little bit of a trouble. So I have Pete Alonso. Again, he's so hard to pick against. I mean, regardless, if someone beats Pete Alonso, it's going to be closer. It's going to have to be one heck of a round. I think Julio is going to be a little too gassed to put on that kind of a round in round 2. So I got Pete Alonso going to the finals for the third straight. Not the third straight year, but third straight derby.
Ye of little faith. I got Julio beating him. I think you're right. I think this is going to be the most electric part of the derby. It's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like the head-to-head from beginning to end. I kind of liked that almost round robin, get your seeding on the first round, maybe do the outs. I prefer the outs over the time. It just something about outs is baseball, time is all other sports. And so I do miss that part of it. And I think honestly, this could be more fun than the championship to watch. But I have Julio beating Alonso.
That is a good point. The home run derbies, I like the bracket, but I like the outs as well because they're so rushed to get the next pitch. You don't even get to watch the home run. It's so just watching. You might see the ball land and that's it. Not as enjoyable to watch, but still an absolute blast. So let's get into our finals picks. I've got Jose Ramirez against Pete Alonso, and there will not be a 3-peat. I've got Jose Ramirez winning it all. Really stamping his name on the game.
That's a take.
I'm almost rooting. If it's not Julio, I hope it's Jose Ramirez. Just such a good guy to watch. Such a, I guess, a great person to look up to because I mean, just the way he's handled the whole situation in Cleveland, committing to that team, committing to that fan base. It doesn't seem like they're ready to make that push to get into win now mode. For him to stay there, be like, no, this is where I want to be. And we all know what legends like Ichiro think of Cleveland. For Jose to say, this is where I want to be. Hats off to him. I think this is his chance to kind of put his name in the spotlight and put his stamp on the baseball world.
Maybe he wants to be in Cleveland because he doesn't know how to win. I don't know, but we don't have anyone even, we don't have any of the same guys even reaching the finals. So this will be fun to check out. I have Julio beating Soto in the finals. I think that Julio's here to say, I'm here to take the torch. And I think that it's going to be really cool to see. He'll defend it next year in Seattle, I think. And we'll see how he can do, but I have faith that he can get the job done.
There you have it. So Jacob's got Julio. I've got Jose Ramirez. Regardless, going to be one of the best events of any all-star event. My personal favorite. It's always incredible. Love it. Can't wait for that tonight. And then tomorrow, it's the all-star game where we're going to see the best of the best that aren't hurt, I guess, take the field playing this one. The lineups came out for both sides. We know the starting pitchers for the American League. It's going to be Shane McClanahan versus Clayton Kershaw in Dodger Stadium. So he is going to get a thundering ovation when he comes out to pitch in that one. The American League, they've won 8 consecutive all-star games. They are just rolling right now, and they've done it in a variety of ways, but it just seems like they have all the momentum on their side right now. They've got a lot of young stars. I think their lineup is much better than the National Leagues. The only problem is I think when you get to the depth, I think it sides with the National League. But pitching, again, American League, even though maybe the best pitcher in the American League, Dylan Cease, isn't even in the game. Unbelievable still. Jacob, what are your thoughts on this year's All-Star game?
I'm now that some travesties have been righted, and I don't necessarily like how they were righted, a lot of guys missing this weekend for a variety of reasons. But I think collectively we have a very good representation of the best players in ball. I agree with you. I think that especially offensively, looking at those starting lineups, advantage American League. But I think this might be the year that the National League kind of takes it back. And I think that begins with Kershaw. Absolutely. I think that, it's the All-Star game. You don't have starting pitchers out there for 6 innings, but while he's out there, I think that he's going to do what he does. And I think that the American League will take the lead at first. But then toward the end of the game, I think the National League is going to come through, like you said, with the depth of their players. And I think that they're actually going to take it this year.
You got the NL getting the job done. This is always tough because you never really know what's going to happen in the All-Star game. I I'm leaning towards the American League. I think the American League gets the job done once again, makes it 9 straight. This lineup just has so much power, so many good hitters that in the blink of an eye, you can see a 4 spot get put up, facing 5 or 6 batters in an inning. And it's just can happen so quick with the mashers in this lineup. And I think that a lot of the American League players are a little bit hotter than some of the National League players coming in. I think there are quite a few National League teams that are struggling a little bit, trying to bounce back. They're looking forward to the break to kind of try to recoup, get back going on the right side of things. The American League just has too many guys just playing red hot baseball right now. I think they get the job done once again. It's always going to be close. And we do got to talk about the cool new rule. If it's tied after 9 innings, it will
America
go to a
wins
home run
if
derby.
nobody wins.
Both managers will choose 3 players to represent their teams. Each player gets 3 swings, and whoever has the most home runs from those total of 9 swings will win. Don't exactly know what'll happen if they have the same amount. It'll just probably keep going. Don't know if they'll throw in a new guy.
Let the manager take a swing. I don't know.
Exactly. That's going to be what everyone is rooting for. If it goes down to managers, I don't like Dusty Baker's chances to win it for the American League. So things might look a little rough there, but yeah, I think it's the American League getting the job done. And MVP, this one's going to be a little bit interesting. It's hard because all it takes is one big hit. But I'm going to go with the best player in baseball so far this season. I think Aaron Judge has a pretty big game, and I think he takes home the MVP award.
Can't go wrong with that pick. I know, like you said, one swing can be all it takes, and you're going home with that MVP. I think it's going to go with one of the best players on the other side of the league, and that's Paul Goldschmidt. I think that, he's just been unbelievable all year, and it's got to go his way, right? Stats, law of averages says that he's going to rough up these pitchers more than the other guys. So that's my safe prediction.
I would say
there.
Both of us going pretty safe. I'm picking the front runner for AL MVP. You're picking the front runner for NL MVP. I guess those are pretty safe bets, although it normally isn't one of those guys. So we'll see what actually happens, but it's going to be a fun one tonight. Always love it. Hey, Julio, Ty France, maybe. Who knows who it's going to be? Robinson Cano did win as a Mariner when he hit that extra inning home run. When the Mariners stole the show, Nelson Cruz with the selfie with Joe West. That was just a fun
That
one.
was the best part. Yes.
Unbelievable. But that will be tomorrow. Of course, tonight, Home Run Derby, All-Star Week. Always exciting. And then get the Mariners a couple more days off. I know a lot of teams play on Thursday. That's going to be a little rough. The Rangers travel. They have to go to Miami for one game Thursday before flying back to California for a weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is miserable, but better than the Mariners. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some current issues in the bigger world of baseball. Juan Soto looks like he might be headed out of Washington. And of course, a couple teams in trouble that were supposed to have pretty good years. We'll talk about those all coming up here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Got Jacob still rocking with us all episode long this time. Jacob, you and I discussed a certain player who just turned down an absolutely ridiculous contract. Juan Soto, the 23-year-old sensation. pretty much saying, I don't want to play with the Nationals anymore. I want to go somewhere else. That has started a snowball of trade talks. And of course, he's under control through the end of 2024 by the Nats. So it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a ridiculous trade. I've seen a lot of the comparisons to a Herschel Walker type trade to get Juan Soto out of Washington. But what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Because I know my mind's been spinning ever since that announcement on, is he going to actually be on the move this year, or will the Nats kind of wait it out, try and convince him to say, it's just a fascinating thing to be happening with a 23-year-old who's younger than most of these prospects that a lot of guys are saying, hey, this is what it's going to take to get Juan Soto.
Yeah. I'll be honest, at first I thought the same as you. I thought that him rejecting that offer was, I can't stand to be on this team for the next decade. And so obviously, if you're the team that gets denied, you're potentially looking to dish him out, especially when those hurt feelings are there. Now, I know, GMs are much more logical than emotional, but at the same time, you're like, well, fine. If you don't want to play with us, then we'll get as much as we can out of you. I'm starting to think that might not be the case, because Scott Boras, his agent, is known for pushing his players towards free agency rather than single team control or single team negotiations. A-Rod rings a bell. I don't think that Soto is an exception to that. I think that this is a very, very young kid, like you mentioned, 23 years old, not usually in the field of play where someone that young is so courted by the entire league. And I think that they want to see what they can do with that. So very well could be he's dished and he re-signs with another team and gets that extension because he didn't want to play for the Nationals. I'm starting to think that it's more along the lines of, I want my rookie contract to be over, and I want to see if I can't set a record for the highest paid athlete in the world. I could easily see them just waiting the rookie contract out, him being happy with his arbitration payouts because they're going to be big in themselves. And then 2025, the biggest free agent market signing in the history of the sport.
I mean, he's on the way to being just that. He's going to be the highest paid player in baseball history. I don't think there's a doubt about that. With 19 years old in the show already, just having the spotlight immediately on him, and he's lived up to the hype every step of the way. It's been really unbelievable. Boras is always, going to get his guy paid. He's not going to just push his guy to a big market either. We've seen him take guys to smaller markets. Obviously, Robinson Cano comes to mind immediately, coming from New York to Seattle. That's a pretty big jump. Juan Soto,
Jay-Z had a hand in that, though, so
Well, yeah, Jay-Z, also not a guy you'd expect to push a guy to Seattle, but
when he sings about New York, I know, right?
It's very fascinating because as a 23-year-old, to be able to look at that number and say, no, thank you. I can't imagine it. Of course, I'm a completely different person than Juan Soto. I'm not nearly as talented in anything as Juan Soto is at baseball. Right. But I think a trade still feels likely to me, because even if he gets traded, there's going to be a big negotiation going on. These teams aren't just saying, hey, we just want to straight up trade these guys for Juan Soto. They're also talking, okay, and if we do, offer this trade, Juan, will you sign this contract for this many years, this amount of money? So there's still almost a bidding war with the contract. So I don't know how much Boras is, saying, let's just get to free agency. But it's going to take just so much that I think I'd be surprised if a trade happens this year. I think as the years go on, getting into 2023, and if there still isn't a trade 2024, I think all of a sudden the price goes down. Not only, I mean, Juan Soto's still going to be young by the time his contract's up, but the Nats are going to start panicking because you don't want to let that guy walk for free. He's not going to sign with Washington if he's a free agent. So the Nationals know they are eventually going to have to trade. He's not going to sign with the Nationals. If he was going to, he would have already signed that contract because they're
no
not
free agent
anymore.
signs with the Nats. Let's be honest.
Exactly. Bryce Harper
Scherzer,
got out
I
of
think,
there
was
as soon as
I think
possible.
Scherzer was the most recent star to sign with them, and he went elsewhere immediately after. So
Nelson Cruz went there, but well past his prime.
Twilight, yeah.
It's gonna take just I look at what these teams have to offer. There's only about a handful of teams who can even afford the prospects to get Juan Soto. You know, the Dodgers are going to be in it. The Yankees are going to be in it. They're not going to trade Juan Soto in the NL East. So sorry, Mets, you're not getting it. The Nats don't want to play him for the next decade plus. But I mean, I see him probably going to the West Coast. I mean, you got the Padres out there, the Dodgers out there, and the Mariners have a lot of prospects. They could be a dark horse in that. I also think St. Louis is a team you got to watch out for. But there's just no way he stays on the East Coast unless it's with the Yankees. And I just don't see the Yankees being able to go get Juan Soto and then try and pay Aaron Judge as well. I think Judge is going to be their guy they're going to go after. Maybe get Juan Soto. They might be the only team who gets Juan Soto just for a few years and says, hey, we don't need to talk about a contract right now. Let's just get you on the team and go from there. So I still give the Yankees a chance, but I really think it's going to come down to Seattle, San Diego, LA, and St. Louis. Those are the four that I have circled as very likely destinations for him. I know a lot of people are saying Texas. I don't know if Juan Soto necessarily wants to go play for Texas because they seem farther away from the playoffs than many thought, because apparently they don't believe in investing pitching at all. So but still, these teams, it depends on how much they want to pay. It's going to take a GM that wants to go pull that trigger, a team that's in win now mode. And yeah, I'm biased. I'm a Mariners fan. I see the Mariners as the favorite. They have so much talent in the minor league level on the farm system. And Jerry Dipoto, he sees that this team's close to being a World Series contender right now. He sees this team's already good enough to make the playoffs. Add in Juan Soto, and they're more than good enough to go to the World Series and even win it. So the potential of Julio Rodriguez and Juan Soto in the outfield together for the next decade plus, and they've got the money to make that happen as well. Man, it gets you excited, but it's exciting to see any team add Juan Soto all of a sudden becomes a team that you're going to have to watch because they immediately become playoff contenders.
And you mentioned that it's going to take a GM who wants to pull the trigger. And honestly, I think that the Mariners are in that position more than the other teams because you've had Jerry Dipoto, and we aren't going to get into do we trust Jerry, do we not? That'll be another, probably a Mariners mini show rather than, the main week show. No, regardless how you feel about him, he was brought into this job to make a playoff team. He made a lot of changes to say, this is how we are going to make that happen. And he's nearing the time where ownership is going to lose faith if it's not happening sooner rather than later. It might be with how we're winning right now. It's not going to be in the middle of this year, period. There's no way. A month and a half ago, it was a maybe. Right now, there's no way. End of this year, doubtful. End of next year, if Mariners are not a playoff team, I do not see him continuing to be the general manager. With that on your plate, with that in your brain, you're more likely to move prospects for bona fide stars. And Juan Soto is a bona fide star. So I could see that happening more than you mentioned the Rangers or even St. Louis, really, where they're in a not so good place right now, but they're not in such a long GM playoff drought that I have to make a move now to save my job. Texas is getting there, let's be honest, but the ownership isn't really concerned with winning right now. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think that the Mariners are in kind of a unique position there. There are a few other. I don't think that Soto has very much of a say in it. I know that, we mentioned if a trade happens, a big factor of that is going to be, hey, Juan, if we do trade for you, are we going to be able to renegotiate that contract, get at least a little bit of an extension? Maybe not 10, 12 years, but we want you for more than 2.5 years. And he does have some power there. But as far as, we're going to trade you to Texas, bye. That's all on the team. And he seems to be very aware of that. So that's one of the benefits of waiting it out until free agency, which again, I think is a possibility. Like you said, the closer he is to that just straight walking away from that contract, being a free agent, the more likely he is to be dished, but then the less detrimental that is to his future. So, I mean, if he gets dished to the Oakland Athletics for 2024, it's not going to affect him at all. And I mean, Oakland's not really in a win now mode anyway, but they do have a lot of, on the cusp guys that they could potentially dish. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that. I don't want it to happen. It's not going to happen. But he will hold more and more cards the longer that they hold out. And I think that that's a big part of it.
Are they even going to be the Oakland Athletics by 2024? That could be a question. No. But the reason I think that the reason I don't see it going to free agency is because the Nationals need to get something out. They got to get something back. Otherwise, they're going to be the laughing stock of baseball. They just have to. And I'm glad you talked about the pressure on Jerry Dipoto. AJ Preller, the GM of the San Diego Padres, he's got similar pressure right now. He's got this great team who looked like they were World Series contenders in the shortened 2020 season that just missed the playoffs last year and again looks solid, but I don't see them winning a World Series this year.
Right.
And being able to go out there and get a Juan Soto, you have a young star in Fernando Tatis who's missing so much time. If you can bring in Juan Soto, then you have another young star who you can kind of all of a sudden shift things to him while Fernando Tatis gets right. Fernando, exactly. Wherever Juan Soto goes, you're going to sell a lot of tickets as well. So it's so fascinating how this will all play out. Maybe there'll be a trade during the All-Star game. How cool would that be?
Yeah, especially if it's NL to AL. Would they walk across the field? I don't know.
Gonna be fascinating to watch for sure. The Juan Soto saga just getting started.
And I think what has really developed, over the course of preparing for this All-Star weekend is how much it's really seemed to bother Soto about the press getting wind of all of this. I've heard from a lot of different places. He's like, I thought these conversations were private, but I guess maybe not. And I think that honestly, that has just tanked all future negotiations of, well, I'm still weighing all my factors. And then it's like, no, maybe we're done here. And so again, I mentioned it in the home run derby area. I think that he is ready to play ball. I don't think he cares what color jersey he's wearing. I think he is going to say, I'm a ball player. This is what I do. This is what you're going to pay me for in 2025 and see what happens.
And I mean, in that series with the Mariners, he did have a little bit of a joking session with Luis Torrens after he hit that absolute monster shot. Maybe your finals prediction of Julio and Soto together could help the Mariners, but we'll see if that actually happens first. It'd be, again, the thought of Julio and Juan Soto together for a decade. Just trade whoever. I don't even care anymore. Trade whoever. Get him here.
Especially if Mitch can be healthy as that third outfielder. My goodness.
Mitch ain't going to be that third outfielder. We'll save that for an episode of Mariners Minis.
Or
let's go to,
I don't know.
Let's go to another team who has been a disappointment, I guess you could say, just like the Washington Nationals, but maybe even bigger so because the expectations were so high. Let's talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. Just firing their manager, Charlie Montoya. Again, another, I think, premature manager firing. It feels like a lot of teams are doing that. We saw Girardi in Philadelphia. We saw Madden with the Angels, and now we see Montoya gone. I think Montoya's makes a little bit more sense because he's had this team for so long and hasn't really been able to find the success. But again, a lot of people had this team as a World Series team. I believe you did have them as a World Series team as well, and neither of our World Series picks are looking great right now. But what are your thoughts on the Blue Jays kind of just laying an egg so far this season? They're still in a position to maybe make a run at the wild card, but right now the pitching just is not working out outside of Kevin Gausman. They really don't have much. The lineup is doing their part, but you can only do so much. And the bridge between starter to Romano in the bullpen is just problematic as well for the Blue Jays.
Right. No, absolutely. Like I said, I had him as a World Series team, and there's just so much talent on this squad. Last year, there was so much talent on this squad. It just seems like that the pitching, the long relief is really, really struggling. Now, firing the manager, at first, I was kind of thinking the same as you, that seems really premature. I guess it makes sense. He has had this team for a while with a lot of star power on it. Not really made the playoffs as often as you would expect. I think part of that is the division they're in. I mean, it's same as, the Padres. You have the Dodgers and then everybody else just trying to eat whatever wins they can. And then, you got the runts on the bottom end of that in both divisions. But it really seems like they're taking this struggling to the next level over the last 3 weeks or so. I've heard that Charlie Montoya lost the confidence of his players, and I've actually heard a lot of players saying that was the right move. And once you hear that, it all makes sense. If a manager gets fired prematurely, the players will let the media know about it. They're not lawyers, they're not representing themselves, they're not agents. If something is hurting their team's chances of winning, they're going to let the media world know about it, sometimes more than the GM or the owners are wanting them to. And I haven't heard much support, honestly, so it does make more sense to me. I'm still hoping they can turn it around. Honestly, the Blue Jays are one of my more favored American League teams in that division. I really hope them and the Rays whop on everyone else, and it never seems to happen. Nah.
500 team right now is all I'm saying.
I know. And Toronto's right there with them. So, which was not what I was expecting at the beginning of the year. I actually had them winning that division, if you remember. Yankees are making that impossible. But I mean, they still have to step it up in some way.
And the Yankees are actually playing some pretty bad baseball the last week as well. But the Blue Jays,
I picked them, so
exactly. So thank you to the Yankees, helped me out for once in my life. But yeah, the Blue Jays. I mean, you talked about they're down there with the Orioles. The Orioles lost their ace John Means early in the season. Who would have thought that the Blue Jays would be neck and neck with the O's thus far? And the Blue Jays, pardon me, have actually had some bad breaks. We saw it in the Mariners series, the ball go through Vlad Jr.'s glove. It just feels like it's been a snowball of things. And last year they had the excuse of, having to play in 3 different home ballparks throughout the season. Now there's the whole issue of if you're not vaxxed, you can't play in Canada. Of course, we're not going to dive into that really here in this one, but you think that would help them out a little bit, but their home record isn't that mind-blowing at home. It's got to be something behind closed doors. And like you said, with the players talking about maybe it was the right move to get rid of Montoya. There had to be something. There had to be just a lack of excitement, or that lack of a spark to get this team going. And maybe this change at manager can get that team going. It'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks. They played some pretty solid baseball last week as well. So we'll see if the Blue Jays can turn things around. Let's go to another team that's struggling, though, a team that already made a change at manager, and that is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, if you still call them that. They are just a disaster, especially since the Mariners brawl. I know a lot of Mariners fans have been enjoying that, but I mean, they just can't seem to get anything going. It's been, you see the little meme on Twitter about how Mike Trout does something amazing. Shohei Ohtani does something that hasn't been done since 1920 as the Angels lose 11-3 or something like that. Something just ridiculous. Right. It
tungsten.
I mean, it's coming to life. It's unbelievable that this team can't figure out a way to get wins. Anthony Rendon, again, done for the season. Starting pitching, inconsistent at best for this squad, and no one else really helping out. Walsh has fallen off quite a bit. Taylor Ward's fallen off quite a bit. It's just they can't get these guys going. Joe Adell finally looks like he might be starting to figure things out. Again, you need some consistency, though, because now there's talks. Do the Angels even keep Trout and Ohtani together? They're starting to run out of time to try and get some wins as well, start trying to make the playoffs. It's mind-boggling how this hasn't worked out with the Angels.
Right. And it wasn't that long ago that we were praising the Angels on just a fantastic start to the season. And you're right, it wasn't just Trout and Ohtani, but it was Taylor Ward and Jared Walsh and Brandon Marsh, and their rotation was doing pretty solid, and they weren't getting hurt. And then they, started struggling a bit, and we were asking, okay, which Angels are the real Angels here? And I think both of us said they'll probably right the ship. I mean, no one's getting hurt, that they're having bad luck. They'll be fine. And then they decided to be the bad guys of the baseball world and pick a fight with America's lovable but drought-plagued underdog. And since that brawl, they're 4-13, while the Mariners are 17-2. Just tale of two ball clubs there. And so, it's really getting to the point where the Angels are whispering, the Angel fans are whispering, the rest of baseball is whispering, like, release your prisoners, your well-paid prisoners. But Trout and Ohtani are once-in-a-lifetime generational talents that if you're stuck on a team with no end in sight, I think of when Ichiro requested a trade to the Yankees from the Mariners, because he had been on that squad for a long time, had success his first year, and then nothing, just nothing. And I remember we were on our way to the game when we got that notification that Ichiro's no longer a Mariner, and we're like, is this a prank? Like, what's going on? Okay, Ichiro's not a Mariner anymore, and our family didn't even believe us that it had happened. Completely understood. Did not hold that against Ichiro in the slightest, because he deserved to win. He was a generational talent that needed a team to actually care enough to surround him with other talent. And it seems like the Angels are shuffling the deck 20 different times, but not improving their situation year after year. Let them go. Let them enjoy their short careers and hopefully win a championship. I mean, they're fantastic players. The best center fielder on the West Coast for only a few more years, and then he will be overtaken, guaranteed. And somebody who isn't even going to have competition because it's so special what he can do.
Yeah. Again, you said it best. These once in a lifetime, once in a generation players, and you can't make the playoffs with them. it's crazy. I saw a little exchange on Twitter between Angels and Mariners fans when, of course, there was beef going on, and an Angels fan tweeted about all the wasted careers of the Mariners, and he tweeted a list of players, and they had all played in more playoff games for the Mariners than Mike Trout has for the Angels. And that just makes you look like, how in the world does this team who hasn't made the playoffs since 2001 have these guys that have still made the playoffs and had more success than Mike Trout? If the Angels decide to blow this up, it'll be looked at as one of the worst eras of any pro sports team in history. Name another team who had two players like a Mike Trout, like a Shohei Ohtani, and failed to even make the playoffs with them. You just can't do it because it doesn't happen. You luck into something eventually. The Angels just seem to not be able to figure it out. I also saw another person say they hope that the Angels get Juan Soto because he wants to figure out how the Angels can get Juan Soto, have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani all in the same roster and still finish under 500. It's just they're the laughing stock of baseball. Really, it blows my mind. It really does. I'm at a loss for words that this team still can't figure it out. And again, I still think they have time to turn things around because they have the opportunities against some teams like the A's and the Rangers. They don't have the hardest schedule in the second half, but it's going to take a lot because they're going up against teams in the wild card race that are red hot, that have already built quite a bit of a lead, that are going to be looking to add on, while the Angels right now, they're sellers. It's crazy. It really is crazy that the Angels can't figure this out.
And looking at that ownership and that management, they are sellers. I don't think that they are going to say, we can still salvage this. Let's go for it. They're going to say, what can we salvage from this? Hey, Taylor Ward had a great year. You looking for somebody who can fill that role? Like, they're going to finish the season under 500, not really trying for anything better because they, I guess, are looking to the future. Maybe the next decade would treat them better. But I mean, you got to think a huge chunk of their salary is taken up by two of the most sought after players in baseball. They could get a lot for them for a lot cheaper. And Rendon, who can't even play. He's not even done once the injury is served. He's missing time because of this well-deserved suspension. So they're not gonna make themselves more stuck. It's time to tear it down, which sucks because they've been doing no building up, but it's time to tear it down anyway.
It kind of reminds me of Drew Brees on the Saints, just having this incredible player through the bad years. They can't figure it out. You think teams are going to learn now not to mess with Jesse Winker. The Mets did it, and that didn't work out well for them. The Mets fans, I guess, that was more fun, and the Angels do it and fell apart. So maybe there's something to not messing with Jesse Winker, but the Angels have had a lot of issues long before Jesse Winker ever made it into the league. It's crazy to think, but that team's looking at a fourth place finish in the AL West right now, headed into the second half of the season. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll finish things up. Our Milwaukee Brewers / Seattle Pilots Mount Rushmore. That is coming up next here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
Pacific Mobile Structures are big supporters of kids and athletics. If you are in need of temporary office space on a work site or for overflow space, or if your building is in need of major renovation, Pacific Mobile Structures can keep your company at work. Pacific Mobile Structures offers everything from traditional modular classroom space to complete multi-purpose college campus buildings, including Sage Classrooms, which combine the latest in healthy learning environments with the best in green building practices. Pacific Mobile Structures can also offer you permanent space for a fraction of the cost to build your own. Go online to check out Pacific Mobile Structures. Alderson's Awards West Printwares is your one stop to tell the world about your school, club, or business. Spread the word on jackets, shirts, hats, and more from Awards West Printwares in Centralia. Awards West Printwares offers fast service of quality products including screen printing and embroidery done on site. They offer a wide variety of advertising specialties at great prices and delivered right to your door. For a full catalog, go online to aldersons.net. For maximum impact, Aldersons Awards West Printwares is ready to serve you today.
We are back here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It is time for the final segment of the week, the Milwaukee Brewers Mount Rushmore, our newest addition to the Mount Rushmore series. And we talked about it. We did not include any Seattle Pilots, unfortunately, in this run. But it is still going to be a fun one. The Milwaukee Brewers made one World Series in franchise history. So, of course, that was a very good era for them in the 70s and 80s, had a lot of good players, but also in the 2010s, had a lot of success as well. Was going to be interesting, had a tough time with a couple of these selections, but let's go ahead and start things off with, I think, the two really no-doubters. We're going to start with Robin Yount. Unbelievable career, of course, Hall of Famer, one of the best hitters of all time. First in pretty much every category in Brewers history, franchise leader in games played, WAR, hits, runs, doubles, triples, RBIs, made the World Series in 82 with that squad, a career 285, 342, 430 slash line with the Brewers, 251 home runs, 1,406 RBIs, 966 walks, a 772 career OPS. Ridiculous numbers, could do it all, could hit the ball all over the ballpark. I mean, that's what hitters did back then, but he could go oppo, he could pull it, he could hit for power, he was quick, he could just do it all. And I think no doubt he is the best player that this franchise has ever seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of few Brewers to hit that 3,000 hit mark, 3,100 hits. That's just an insane career. 20 years all with the Brewers. That really helps as well. He had more hits than any other player throughout the 1980s. That entire decade, he was the hit king. A lot of fantastic team memories, too. When I think of Yount, my mind immediately goes to that diving catch that he made in center field. He was a shortstop, transitioned to center field when injuries started plaguing him. He had this incredible diving catch to seal. It was the final out on their first no-hitter ever recorded. And I don't think anyone is more loved by older Brewer fans, and I don't even think it's close. 3 All-Star games, 3 Silver Sluggers, a Gold Glove, 2 MVPs, one of very few players to ever in the game get multiple MVPs. Just something special. Absolutely.
Easy decision there. And number 2 is also an easy decision. Let's roll right into Paul Molitor because he's right up there with Yount. Paul Molitor, another phenomenal career, was a part of that 82 team that made it to the World Series. And he's pretty much second in every category behind Yount.
Yeah.
Was only not second in home runs, doubles, and RBIs. He also was first in stolen bases. Had a career average of 303 with the Brewers, 160 home runs, 790 RBIs, 2,281 hits, an 811 OPS career with the Brewers. Again, just a guy who just went to work, was just a pure hitter for the Brewers in that golden age of Milwaukee baseball. That it blew my mind. It blows my mind still that this team didn't have more success. But I mean, again, a guy who could just spread the ball all over the ballpark. Just a pure hitter. Watching his highlights throughout or while we were researching for this was just an absolute blast. Not a guy I had watched a lot of. I had seen him here and there, but to really dive in, man, this guy was pretty special as well.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things that I was finding out, his 39-game hit streak, one of the longest in the history of the sport. I mean, cannot sneeze at 39 games with hits in a row. The Milwaukee fans booed his teammate Rick Manning for winning the game while Molitor was on the on-deck circle, and it broke the streak. He potentially could have gotten to 40. I mean, no guarantees, obviously. You're not going to hit every time you come up. But can you imagine getting booed by your own fans for hitting a walk-off? Just incredible. But seriously, his stats were just insane, especially when you factor in how much he was hurt. He spent a lot of time on the DL. Fantastic infielder. Again, sometimes outfielder if the injuries or the age made him go that way. Some of his biggest accomplishments were after he left the team, but just a phenomenal Brewer career, 5 All-Star games, 2 Silver Sluggers. Yeah, it was another no-brainer.
Two of the best to really do it in the 80s, both on the same squad. We just talked about Trout and Ohtani. They didn't have as much success, but at least the Brewers did more than the Angels have, a special 1-2 duo there. Headed to number 3, again, we're staying on the same path. We have Cecil Cooper. Mr. Consistency is really what I wrote down for him. A 300 hitter pretty much in every season as a Brewer until he got to the tail end of his career and still flirted with 300. Would hit for 20-plus home runs, would drive in 100-plus runs consistently, had that maybe the biggest hit in Milwaukee Brewers history, the 2-out, 2-run knock in the ALCS in 82 to push them to the World Series. Just really special player. 302, 339, 470 slash line, 201 career home runs, 944 RBIs, 367 walks, 1,815 hits. Remember, he got traded from Boston to Milwaukee, and I'm sure Boston was kicking themselves when they saw him really come into his own with the Brew Crew there in the 80s.
Yeah, no. And it was the 3 of them that just led the Brewers to some of their most successful seasons, ultimately 82 when they fell just short of that Grand Prix. I mean, Game 7 World Series, you're a happy squad. You want to win. You're a very sad team if you lose, but that cannot be said as a bad year ever. And yeah, it was just incredible. 5-time All-Star, 3 Silver Sluggers, 2 Gold Gloves, and a Roberto Clemente Award. I always like to throw those in for those guys that just were great people.
Yeah, we talked about the Roberto Clemente Award with Carlos Delgado. That's like the Walter Payton Man of the Year, but for baseball. So yeah, always got to give the shout out to guys who take home that reward. And I'm glad that you mentioned that Yale, Molitor, and Cooper all playing together at the same time. I can't think of maybe the Diamondbacks had the 3 with Schilling, Randy, and Luis Gonzalez. But other than that, not many teams have 3 guys on their Mount Rushmore all playing together for pretty much their entire careers. That's pretty special as well. So really cool to see that. But then we get to number 4 where I had some troubles coming up with this one. We're going to go more modern here, get away from that run. I mean, it came down to, without a doubt, is Prince Fielder or Ryan Braun. It was just such a tough decision, but there's so many question marks about Ryan Braun and the steroid use. Of course, he admitted to it. We don't exactly know when he was using PEDs. And he didn't have, I mean, his numbers were good after, I think we can all agree he was clean because he was getting tested. He had already been popped, but they weren't anything special. I went with Prince Fielder as number 4. I remember watching him growing up. I mean, this guy was just built to hit bombs. He was an absolute monster. 282 career average, nothing special there. Eyebrows raised, but for a power hitter, that's really good. 230 home runs, 656 RBIs, 566 career walks, 996 hits with the Brewers. Again, just a feared power hitter, did it clean, which is why, of course, he has the edge over Ryan Braun. 3rd in Brewers history in home runs, 7th in RBIs, but that's without being in the top 10 for either at-bats or games played. That is unbelievable that you can get that close to leading your franchise in these incredible offensive categories, but didn't have that many appearances with them to even crack the top 10. Unbelievable career for Prince Fielder. Of course, he went on to have less success with the Tigers and with the Rangers, but man, when he was with the Brewers, he was at his best and just one of the most feared power hitters in all of baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest, and I mean biggest, faces of the MLB in the mid to late 2000s. And like you said, just one of the funnest guys to watch on the field. 2 of those 230 home runs were inside the Parkers. Really, really weird inside the Parkers, but it counts nonetheless. And what amazed me was, for a power hitter, I mean, he was just a monstrosity of a home run hitter. His on base percentage was fantastic for a power hitter, a big guy of his caliber. I mean, you think of others in that same conversation, and my mind goes to like Vogelback is kind of starting to get there, where he hits bombs, but he gets on base, and that's kind of the important thing in his mentality. You got guys like that just it's cool to see something other than just home runs. Something else that I really, really liked about Prince Fielder was how often he was in the game. 157 games was his minimum appearance as a Brewer, and it only went up from there. He hit 162 multiple times. Just insane that a player like that is able to go in every single day and be that reliable for your team. 3 All-Stars, an All-Star Game MVP, 2 Silver Sluggers, and just multiple MVP considerations. He rounded out my top 4 as well.
2-time home run derby champion as well.
Oh, yeah.
Really special. And I think that average of games played would have gone up if he was playing today when National League has the DH, because that's why he didn't quite hit the 162 when he was with Milwaukee, because you got to get the guy a day off here and there, at least a little bit. So there you have it. Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Cecil Cooper, and Prince Fielder are your Milwaukee Brewers. Mount Rushmore for both Jacob and I. We do have some honorable mentions. I had to put Ryan Braun on there. We talked about the steroid issue, just too foggy and didn't have enough success when we know he wasn't using PEDs. Also have Teddy Higuera and Ben Sheets, one of my favorite Brewers of all time. He was so much fun to watch. Fun to use in the old video games as well. Dude was just a special talent. And I also have some guys who are on the team right now: Brandon Woodruff, Josh Hader, and of course Corbin Burns, all have potential to get on this list as well. Of course, it unfortunately be at the expense of Prince Fielder, but those 3 guys are just right now having such good careers and another great era of Brewers baseball.
For sure. Yeah. I had a few honorable mentions. No current players for me. Braun, obviously, he leads the team in so many records. Rookie of the Year, MVP, 6 All-Star games, 5 Silver Slugs, no Gold Gloves because he was just an awful defender, but forever tainted by biogenesis. It hurts, you know? Ben Sheets, incredible pitcher. Injuries really killed his career. Otherwise, I could see him being in the Hall of Fame if he just kept up how he was so dominant when he was on the mound. If he was able to keep that up, I could see him in there, no problem. And then I actually added Raleigh Fingers. You know, only 4 years with the club, not usually enough to make any of these lists, but they were fantastic years. His first year with the club, Cy Young and MVP and an All-Star. He made the All-Star the year after as well. He changed the game, not just his mustache, but he created that closer role. So I have a feeling we're going to talk about him in some later teams, and we can get into some more details there. But he did have an incredible Brewers career as well. That also led to that 1982 year. Yeah, that's a 4th. You know, that just, how did they not win the World Series in 4 games? I don't know, but
special team. Got to give a shout out to another guy who, you know, also a Mariners legend, and Giovanni Gallardo, who had a pretty good career with the Brewers as well. Not quite Mount Rushmore worthy, but got to get that in as well. So there's our Milwaukee Brewers Mount Rushmore. Next week, we're going to have a little bit of a tough one with the Montreal Expos / Washington Nationals. We are combining them. I know some Expos fans hate that, but got to do what you got to do. They count for the same franchise records. So you got to go there. And that is going to be a fun one because not a lot of guys come to mind when you think of Expos and Nationals. So it's going to be a little bit of a dig for us to try and find the top 4. That'll be next week, but that'll do it for this edition of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Once again, thank you so much for the listen. Also, make sure to check out our other socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to follow us there. You can see our Mariners minis posted exclusively there on the socials. That'll do it, though, for this episode. Next week, episode 14, we will know who wins the home run derby, if it's Jacob or I that get a decree next week. And, of course, never know what's going to happen in baseball. The trade deadline fast approaching, and hoping to get our college football talk next week. It looks like we might have something lined up for that. Some big changes in the world of college football. That'll be coming up all next week here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.